Salutations, respected viewers. In this video I'm going to continue my series on the Northern Ireland Troubles, picking up where I left off, May 1974. The end of the Sunningdale Agreement, the power-sharing executive had fallen, which had included the SDLP, the Alliance, the Ulster Unionist Party. So Gerry Fitt had been Deputy Chief Executive, whereas Brian Faulkner had been Chief Executive. A lot of the Ulster Unionist Party had opposed that. Actually, they'd narrowly voted for it in December 1973, but by May 1974, most of them had been against. So that was that. You can see some fascinating interviews with Brian Faulkner right after it failed, saying he resigned as chief executive because of the Ulster Workers Council strike. And he said we would have had people dying and sewage running in the streets. Well, people have already been dying. About 1,000 people have been killed in the previous 5 years. So sewage running in the streets was not as bad as what was happening anyway. Now, there was no way that this power-sharing executive was going to bring violence to a sudden end. Way back in 1971, when Brian Faulkner had resigned as Prime Minister of Northern Ireland, he said that we have to be frank. This problem of political violence is not about to disappear. It could only be defeated gradually, and it was going to take several years. But anyway, who were the real winners from the failure of the Sunningdale Agreement? Well, it was good news for the IRA, obviously, and it was good news for the extremist loyalists like the UVF and the Ulster Freedom Fighters. Should I say the UDA? They'd run the strike. The UDA was a lawful organisation. So membership of the UDA was compatible with being in the Ulster Defence Regiment at the time. Remember, the Ulster Defence Regiment was a unit of the British Army, mainly part-timers, all resident in Northern Ireland, doing local military security duties. Sunningdale had been possible partly because Liam Cosgrave was Taoiseach of the Republic of Ireland. He was a leader of the Fine Gael party, the more moderate of the two major parties in the Irish Republic, but obviously he was committed to the long-term goal of a 32-party republic. Jack Lynch of Fianna Fáil had been voted out a few months earlier. Liam Cosgrave, incidentally, is unique in being the only Taoiseach who was the son of a previous Taoiseach, W.T. Cosgrave, who'd ruled 1922 to 32. But I digress. There was a major upswing in violence in late 1974. And then in October 1974, Harold Wilson, who had a wafer-thin majority, called another general election. Harry West, remember, was leader of the Ulster Unionist Party because Brian Faulkner had been voted out. Brian Faulkner briefly formed his own party, but that disappeared after a few years. Harry West lost his seat in Fermanagh, South Tyrone, and Frank Gallagher won it. He was a Republican but not part of Sinn Féin, and Frank Gallagher said he was going to abstain in person. The usual Irish Republican policy was to abstain from Westminster because that involved taking an oath of loyalty to the British monarch. And obviously Irish Republicans say that they are not British, and the monarch of the United Kingdom has no legitimacy anywhere in Ireland. But Gallagher, he broke with that and he swore this oath of allegiance. Anyhow, Harry West was in the bizarre position of being the leader of a Westminster party, but he did not have a Westminster seat himself. Another thing I should point out, it was in 1972 that the Ulster Unionist Party broke away from the Conservative Party. Prior to that, they'd been a subsection of the Conservatives. So Conservatives didn't stand in Northern Ireland under the label Conservative, they'd stood under the label Ulster Unionist. Anyway, so let me see. November 1974, there were lots of attacks by the IRA on police stations in South Armagh. South Armagh was a real cockpit of IRA activity, bandit country, as an army officer later labelled it. One of the doyens of the IRA in the area, Michael McVery, was shot dead as he planted a bomb at an RUC station. There's a ballad which commemorates him. So the Ulster Freedom Fighters, which was a cover name under which the UDA carried out murders, they continued their sectarian attacks. John White, he murdered a Protestant nationalist politician and indeed his girlfriend in a knife attack. So White was interviewed by this decades later and showed no remorse whatsoever about what he'd done in killing a constitutional politician who was simply peacefully campaigning to express his opinions. Anyway, the IRA in the south of Ireland carried out some sectarian attacks on Protestants For example, surrounding a Protestant house in Clonus, County Monaghan, burning its Bible and then the house. Fine Gael Senator Billy Fox was shot dead by the official IRA for no other reason than being a Protestant. He was a Fine Gaeler. Incidentally, the official IRA was supposedly anti-sectarian. This is why they split with the Provisionals, because I said the Provisionals explicitly identify with Catholicism. I've got a tape of pro-provisional IRA songs from the late 80s, and it's got songs like I'm Catholic and true, I am a Catholic, and lad and true, I hate the old red, white and blue. And so it goes on. So we can't pretend they're not sectarian. Anyway, the UDA flirted with the idea of an independent Northern Ireland. The Vanguard Party had also examined this possibility. They felt Great Britain wasn't foursquare behind them, and they thought they ought to be backed to the hilt. Now, some unionists were delusional. They looked back to the Home Rule crisis of 1912. Well, this wasn't the same situation. Back then, Ulster had been the fulcrum of British politics, and this wasn't the case. So the Conservative Party was not backing them fully. The Conservative Party was demanding serious concessions to nationalist sentiment, to what the Irish government wanted. So Northern Ireland was the edge of the UK, was more traditional, and they felt Great Britain was a bit too liberal on other issues, like homosexuality had been decriminalised in England and Wales, was still illegal in Northern Ireland until 1981, things like that. Single motherhood was very much the exception in Northern Ireland when it was losing its stigma in Great Britain by the 70s. London's willingness to parley with Dublin was anathema to the UDA, Vanguard and so on. So ultra-loyalists were loyal only to their own vision of Protestant Ulster, not to the UK at all. Of course, if one's loyal, one needs to obey the law and the orders of the government. And the test for loyalty is obeying the laws and the orders that one disagrees with. It requires no loyalty at all to simply agree with orders and laws that one approves of. So Robert McCartney, later a unionist MP, was to make this observation. He was an unusual type of unionist MP who didn't want devolution. All other shades of unionism wanted devolution, wanted Stormont back in some form. So the UDA, they invented their own saltire for an independent Northern Ireland, that's to say an X shape with 6 pointed stars in 6 counties. Should they have a republic? But no, most people in Northern Ireland felt some sentimental attachment to the monarchy, so they envisioned Northern Ireland being a Commonwealth realm along the lines of Jamaica or Australia. The Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Merlin Rees, he lifted the ban on the UVF in an attempt to draw them into politics and away from violence. Didn't pay off. The UVF set up their own front party, which was the Volunteer Political Party. It was the only loyalist organisation or unionist organisation which was mildly left-wing, said that the Tories are concerned about wealthy regions of England, not about us. We must do more for full employment, higher benefits, higher salaries, so on, have excellent public services. But they still espoused the loyalist cause ferociously. So the Volunteer Political Party held only 6% of the vote, and perhaps they took a few voters away from the DUP, which was the main voice of uncompromising loyalism. So the DUP spoke out against the UVF, but their denunciations rang hollow. Anyway, the Volunteer Political Party dissolved itself by the late 70s. So Gerry Adams, in his autobiography, he says that some Catholics helped loyalist terrorist organisations. Now, Mr. Adams is a provable liar on myriad issues, such as his IRA membership. There are photos of him at an IRA march wearing a beret like the rest of them. He used to write a brownie column for An Phoblacht, meaning the Republic. That's the IRA's newspaper, when he was interned in Long Kesh. And he wrote, rightly or wrongly, I am an IRA volunteer. He wrote it under the pen name of Brownie. Now, it'd be great in an interview to ask him, was your nom de plume Brownie? Did you write under that name from this date to this date? If so, he'd be exposed yet again. Numerous IRA members said he was in the IRA, as did the RUC, as did the Garda Síochána Corner, as did anyone you name, as did his dear friend Brendan Hughes. There's a photo of them as young men, arms around each other, clearly bosom buddies, and yet he tells such flagrant lies. But it could be that some Catholics did help loyalist terrorist organisations. Why would one assist an organisation which was avowedly anti-Catholic? Well, it could be to be immune from assassination. The UVF say, you help us and you and your family will not be targeted. And obviously, Some Catholics had reason to abominate the IRA, who'd kill their relatives who were in the security forces, or indeed bombs went off in shops and things like that. So the UVF would kill any Catholic. If they could kill someone who's actually in the IRA, that was a bonus for them. So the loyalist organisations, they were robbing bookmakers, post offices and so on, payrolls, which were often in cash in those days, to fund their activities. They purchased weapons from Lebanon. Anyway, that's about enough about 1974.